So today we're going to be reading another book by the same author that we've been learning about, Laura Numeroff. So last class we read If You Give a Moose a Muffin, and this class we're going to read If You Take a Mouse to School. So we're kind of going to be continuing our lesson from last week. Can anybody remember what we worked on? Yes, we worked on retelling stories. So we learned the really useful trick when retelling our stories. So I have the chart right here that we used last class, so we're just gonna go over it again. So remember, we use our 5 fingers to retell the key details in a story. So first we have characters, settings, beginning, middle, and end. So the 5-finger retell is something that we can actually connect to those 6 question words that we learned earlier. So again, going over those 6 question words, there's who, what, where, when, why, and how. So those are the 6 question words, and I want you all to take a minute to think about how those 6 question words can connect to the 5-finger retell. So hopefully you guys have had enough time to go over the question and find your answers. So again, the question was, what are some connections you can make between the 5-finger retell words and the 6 question words that we have? So I'm just gonna go over the answers that I came up with. So for setting, I would relate those words to when and where, because where is a place and when is a time, and those both relate to the settings. For characters, I would relate that to who. So in our situation, so who represents a person or an animal, and in our situation, we would be referring to an animal. And for the rest of the 3 retell words, beginning, middle, and end, I would relate all of those to what, because we would be thinking about what happened in the story, and we would be retelling the events that we saw in the story. So that would be categorized as what. So now that we were able to review the question words and the 5-finger retell, I'm just gonna go over the objectives for today. So I have it written also right here on the board. So it says, today we will be going to accurately retell stories by using the 5-finger retell and making sure to use key details. So I want you all to repeat it out loud with me. Today we will be going to accurately retell stories by using the 5-finger retell and using key details. So now we're going to be reading the book, If You Take a Mouse to School. And as I'm reading this, I want you all to remember the 5-finger retell words and also these question words. If you take a mouse to school, he'll ask for your lunchbox. When you give him your lunchbox, he'll want a sandwich or a snack for later. Then he'll need a notebook and some pencils. He'll probably want to share your backpack too. When you get to school, he'll put his things in your locker and take a look around. He might do a little math and spell a word or 2. He'll even try a science experiment. Then he'll need to wash up. You'll have to take him to the bathroom. Once he's nice and clean, he'll be ready for his lunch. On his way to the lunchroom, he'll see some building blocks. He'll build a little mouse house and make some furniture out of clay. Then he'll need some books for his bookshelf. He'll start by writing one of his own, so he'll need a lot of paper. He'll probably use up all of your pencils. When he's finished, he'll want to read his book to you. Then he'll want to take it home, so we'll put it in your lunchbox and tuck it in a safe place. When the bell rings, he'll run out to wait for the bus. When he's waiting, he'll play a quick game of soccer. Then he'll ask you to shoot a few baskets and do a little skateboarding. When he stops to catch his breath, he'll want to eat a snack, so he'll ask you for your lunchbox. And chances are, if he asks you for your lunchbox, you'll have to take him back to school. So now that we've finished reading the story, we're gonna be watching this little video, and it is a song that will help us retell the parts of a story. So as we're watching the video, I want us all to be thinking about the story we just read, If You Take a Mouse to School, and we're gonna be answering the questions that we see in the video.
The people are the characters. The people are
first detail that the song went over was the characters, and this relates to the question word who. So in the story, if you take a mouse to school, this would relate to the mouse and the little boy who the mouse went to school with.
The setting is just where they are. Just where they are. The setting is just where they are. Just where they are. The setting is just where they are. Like in their house or in their car.
So the second detail that the video went over was the setting. And again, as we talked about before, the setting refers to when and where. So when talking about if you take a mouse to school, the setting would be the school.
The beginning is what happened first. What happened first. The beginning is what happened first. What happened first. The beginning is what happened first. Like once upon a time there were.
So the third detail that the video went over was the beginning. And if we think back to the beginning of the story, the first thing the mouse asked for was your lunchbox. He then asked for a sandwich and a snack for later. So those would be the first things that came in the book.
The middle part, the problem start. The problem start. The middle part, the problem start. The problem start. The middle part, the problem start. Like when the fishy saw the shark.
So the third thing that the video talked about was the middle part. And if we think back to the middle part of the story, this is when we saw the mouse actually at school. And a couple things that the mouse asked for was to do a science experiment, to go to the bathroom, and after he did the science experiment, he needed to get nice and clean so he could be ready for lunch. And he also wanted to build a little mouse house and made some furniture out of clay. So these are just a couple things that we saw the mouse do in the middle of the story.
The end. Just take a look at the last page. And close the book. The end. Just take a look at the last page and close the book.
So the last section that the video talked about was the end of the book. And if we think back to the end of the book, we remember the mouse and the little boy playing a game of soccer, and the mouse had to stop and he got hungry. So then he asked the little boy for his lunchbox, and this made him want to go back to school all over again. So those were the 5 elements of the book that we learned throughout watching this video. The characters, the settings, the beginning, the middle, and the end. So now that we've gone over it, I just want you to turn to your partner and discuss again the 5 elements of the story, the characters, the setting, what happened to the beginning, what happened in the middle, and what happened in the end. After you and your partner have gone over the 5 elements of the book, I want you also to come up with a central message for the book. So what was one main takeaway that you had for the book? And what's kind of a central message that can be said for the book? So now that you and your partner have finished going over the 5 elements of the book and also the central message, I'm going to be passing out these worksheets, and it is a cut and glue worksheet. So what you're gonna do for the worksheet is, these are all photos that you're gonna have to put in order. And I'm going to be passing out a copy of the book if you take a mouse to school, and you're just going to be placing these pictures in the correct order. So for example, here's a backpack. So if you read the story and it mentions a backpack, then you're gonna put that first. So basically we're just gonna try and put everything in the correct sequence in order to retell the story. And we're gonna be using details from the book to put them in order. After you and your partner have finished putting the photos in order, you're also going to be writing the central message for the story. So you can just go ahead and write that right at the top. after you have placed all of these photos in the correct order. Great job with the last assignment. Now that we have finished that, we're going to be working on this puzzle. So for this activity, you're actually going to be working alone, and here's a picture of it. So this is a puzzle that you're gonna cut out and you're gonna put it together yourselves. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna read this little passage at the top, and all of these pictures relate to the sentences in the passage. So, for example, it says, I'm a good cook. First, I took the cookbook off the shelf. So I'm gonna look for one of these photos, and whichever one seems like it would be related to the first sentence, I'm gonna put that in the puzzle piece first. I'm then just gonna connect the puzzle pieces together until the puzzle is complete. After you put the puzzle together, you're going to be labeling the puzzle pieces as the 5 elements of the story, of retelling a story. So characters, settings, beginning, middle, and end. After you've labeled all the puzzle pieces, you're also going to put a moral of the story. So the puzzle was the last activity for today. So just to recap what we learned how to do today, we learned the question words, we reviewed that, and we also reviewed the 5-finger retell, and we also learned how the 5-finger retell and these question words relate to each other. So as an exit ticket, I want you guys to write down the question words that correspond with the 5-finger retell words. So for setting, remember we talked about the 2 question words that could relate to those, for characters, and for beginning, middle, and end.